Okay, so I am here with an interview on Real Talk with the Bluntness that I have been dying to do. Welcome, Chef Sebastian Carosi, our chef extraordinaire of the tomato heirloom toasts. How are you today, sir?
I'm excellent, Aubrey. Thank you for having me, and thank the Bluntness for having me on. I'm
Yeah,
feeling really good. The Pacific Northwest, the skies are clearing up, the fires are settling down a little bit, and people are slowly moving on to their crops and getting on with Croptober.
but you're okay.
Absolutely, I am. And thanks for asking. Seriously, I'm okay. A lot of people, we had about 2,500 people displaced from their homes in Oregon and a few in Washington. But I know the resilience of Washington, Oregon, and their farmers and producers. And I think everybody will bounce back.
Awesome. We've been thinking about you, and I have to tell you, those toasts that you made for us last week look delicious. How did they taste? Did anybody taste test them for you?
Yeah, but I was lit like you wouldn't believe after eating them. That cannabis infused bacon fat. So the heirloom tomato toast with the cannabis infused bacon fat is something that's the ubiquitous tomato toast has been throughout America, California, the American South, whether it's with white bread and Hellman's mayonnaise and just tomato and salt, or whether it's gussied up like Southern California style. It lends to some health and some cannabinoids getting into our system. And for me, that's hugely important because tomato season usually is preceded by cannabis season.
Perfect timing. It's like nature's like, here, just this is what I'd like to put on your plate.
Absolutely. And like what you just said, the nature putting on your plate is kind of what grows together, goes together. I kind of stick to that philosophy. So for me, it was all natural for the tomatoes to be paired with sea salt from Oregon. And if people aren't from Oregon, use sea salt from California or Maine or from the closest proximity to you.
Yep. I love that. I wanted to kind of rewind a little bit. Something about you that hit my eye right away is that we're both from the great state of New Hampshire. We have ties to the 603 live free or die state. And
Hell yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about your journey with cannabis and your culinary journey and how you got to where you are today?
So my journey started, I was end user in the beginning, very young. My father was a cannabis user. He was also a medical professional. So to be able to see a medical professional going to work every day, consuming cannabis multiple times a day, it didn't give me that stigmata that the press and everybody else was putting out, because I saw a functional human being going to work, operating on people, if need be, under the influence of cannabis. And I'm sorry if I let that out of the bag. But it happens every day, as a matter of fact. We just don't want a drunk doctor operating on us. So for me, New England is very, very unfriendly to cannabis. I will just say that right off. You know the laws. It's not a fun place to be in with cannabis. So I left New England as quick as I could to get to some friendlier states, and just kind of brought everything that is New England with me in spirit and mind, and kept that alive. And now we have states that are, Maine, Massachusetts, people are getting on board, and the laws throughout the country will change very soon.
Yes. Could you ever see yourself going back there and doing anything in the industry?
So I would love to actually go back and help some of the people, because I have a stance that I like to stand on, and a pedestal, a podium, whatever you want to call it. And I'm fully into clean cannabis consumption through food, excluding the sugar products. And that's something that's hugely important to me, because when we go to these pot shops, these dispensaries, these medical shops, whatever you want to call them, in whatever legalized state your state is in, all you can find on the shelves is sodas, candies, gummies, sugar-based products. And the last time I was told and checked with the scientists, the doctors, sugar feeds cancer. It is potential causer of cancer, and cannabis is a cancer combatant. So when we wrap up our cannabinoids in these sugar-based products as our delivery system, isn't that kind of oxymoronical? It is, isn't it?
It very much is. When you put it that way, it's right there. Doesn't make sense.
It's that simple. And unfortunately, people are completely fleeced by what little knowledge is out there. We're not able to advertise in the cannabis industry, so we don't have commercials, and basically we're located in the state that is legal. I'm in the Washington I-502. So we don't have much advertisement. And with advertisement, I don't mean advertisement like, excuse the way I put this, but naked women and people blowing bong hits out. I'm not into that shit. I'm into the educational process of what does this plant truly have available for us? Whether it's the raw plant, hemp, ruderalis, sativa, indica, whatever you want to call it, whether it be autoflower, whatever plant, it grows leaves. Those leaves are edible. They're the most perfect source of vegetable-based protein on the planet. 22%, up to 22%. Nothing. Kale, spinach, nothing rivals that. But yet, we don't eat it. I don't get that, I really don't get that. So for me, to push people more in the direction of less sugar-based products and more maybe raw consumption of THCA, CBDA, and all the other alphabets that follow the raw cannabinoid profile with eating and consuming raw cannabis. And then I want you to cook it too, because, if you cook it, you just activate some of the things in the THCA and CBD become kind of more readily available for your endocannabinoid system. And for me, that consumption through food is highly important.
Yeah, that's a question I had with the toasts, that you had the raw leaves. They hadn't been put in butter or anything. I know that you use magical butter and other products that you're cooking, but I've never quite seen anybody use the leaves like that.
So, and that's where I want to get. If you notice, most of the dishes that I do, I don't even say create because somebody else created them, put together. Right. You'll notice that I have cannabinoids that have been decarboxylated or activated. Like I like to say, without decarboxylation, there is no activation, there is no fun. That's fun part and medical part. We have two parts that I like to concentrate on. So when I do talk about food, you'll notice that recipe had the cannabis infused bacon, which had decarboxylated. Yep. But I also had those raw leaves. And those raw leaves were providing THCA, CBDA, and raw vegetable protein. The mix of the two is basically optimizing every bit of the nutrition and medical value and all values that you can possibly conceive from this plant. You're actually using in one dish, as simple as tomato toast.
Wow. It's just I love how you approach things so scientifically in terms of the plant. I know you are... I love that. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm country, Aubrey. I'm as country as they come. I'm damn near a bumpkin. I was raised in the country, raised on a farm, but I was also the chef that was like, if I'm going to be a chef, I'm going to be able to name more than 5 kinds of carrots, more than 7 kinds of apples. And I don't mean the genetically modified ones you find in the grocery store. Most chefs couldn't name 3 carrots. And don't ask me right now because I probably can only name 2. I'm just kidding. Chantenays, Scarlet Nantes, Atomic Reds, Pop, Atomic Purples. And those 4 right there are over 200 years old. Wow. I wish I could figure the 5th one out, but ask me apples and I'll go crazy. So knowing your craft is truly what it was about. You had a gentleman on a while ago named Warren. He is into cocktails like you wouldn't believe. Yeah. But it's not the whole rounding of Warren that I truly love. It's his passion for rum. Yeah. That one thing that he has exploited and just like learned every damn aspect of. I'm never going to, neither is anybody on this planet going to know everything there is to know about this plant we call cannabis ruderalis, cannabis sativa, cannabis indica, whatever you want to call it. We're never going to know enough in our lifetime. The earth is aging, and call it what you will. The earth is getting old just as well as we get old. So utilizing those forms of nutrition that are just readily available that we used to grow in our closet to get high with is now a source of nutrition and medicine. I love it. Absolutely love it.
I have to say, we keep up with you, of course, everything that you're doing on Instagram, and some of the photos of the fungi, the mushrooms that you find are unbelievable. It's unbelievable to me. Oh my gosh. What is that?
We just pickled 22 quarts, 22 of these of white chanterelles and lobster mushrooms that we found in Gifford Pinchot. We took a few folks from Fairwinds Cannabis and Scored Marijuana, a couple of the producers and processors here in the Washington I-502 out into Gifford Pinchot Forest and foraged for a ton of lobster mushrooms. And that connection to the land is like that new exploitation of terpenes when people get involved with cannabis and they're like, what's a terpene? Terpene, it's like this new word. And it's like, but you love to hike and you love to smell flowers and you love to smell the pine and you love to, you're so far into terpenes already. You just don't know exactly how to marry them to that cannabis plant and to get all their benefits, you know? So the mushrooms for me and the cannabis and being in the woods and creating this lifestyle that revolves around, I like to call everything green, everything good, is kind of what I've based my life on as a chef, and as a chef that has worked for some pretty high class people. I don't call them clients because they weren't my clients. They were people. We eat food together, and they include, and people might hate me for this, but people like George Bush, Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith, Heather Locklear. I mean, I've sat and had people, Leonard Nimoy. I shared a bottle of BV, Bouillon Vineyards cab with Leonard Nimoy at his house in Bel Air. And that was probably one of the most interesting. And yeah, you better believe we smoked a big ass joint right there in his estate in Bel Air drinking BV. So for me, the level of cannabis is not all, like Warren had a really deep interest in the very wealthy folks of rum and spirits. And cannabis is not like that. Cannabis came from the outlaw age and is only 8 years legal at its farthest point. So if you can imagine all the outlaws that are still involved in everyday cannabis, that's where the end user comes into play when you talk about all these things like social media. 4 years ago, I never had an Instagram page. Did you notice that? I didn't think there was any value in it. But it connected me to you. It connected me to the Bluntness. It connected me to the whole world to be able to say, you can make heirloom tomato toast and throw some weed in there and some weed on it and eat it and have a good time and get your nutrition, you know?
Yeah, I love how you use social media. I have to tell you that you seem to really have just a natural knack for the cannabis community. And I'm also very struck by the education and the intention that you always bring to educate. It's, as you know, it's a crazy industry with a lot of money flying back and forth, but I do appreciate that education is so important to you. That said, you do have some awesome sponsors with products. How do you choose them? Who are they? And why do you like their products?
So my major sponsor is Magical Butter, and they don't sponsor me monetarily. None of these, I never ask for money in any way. I only say that I can give them what and who I am in return. So when we talk to people like Magical Butter, this is giving people the easiest way at home to create edibles without having to use so much sugar. Not only edibles, butter, oil, lotion, tinctures, the list goes on and on. I could just talk on and on. And there's other equipment that goes on your countertop. But this countertop botanical extractor hits it off for me because it's ease of use. I want a 65, 75-year-old lady or gentleman that is not going to go into a cannabis store just due to stigma and purchase something. I want him to be able to make something at home, her to be making something at home that's just as easy as possible. So after decarboxylation of your cannabis, you put it in here and you're limitless. I make vinegar, I make absinthe, rum, oil. Oh yeah, love infused alcohols. Just low dose infused alcohols because we've had a lot of years of alcohol use and abuse, so I don't like to continually put the two together in a marriage. When you're consuming the two equally, it's good, but when you combine the cannabinoids into the alcohol, it has some effects that people really aren't used to, like that first time you drank champagne in a hot tub. Woo!
Bubbles from every angle.
So for me, their product, there's other products and I'll name them, Ardent, Levo, those are good products, but I have a culinary background, so I'm actually going to put something to the test. I don't want a machine that I can put in a fancy ass backpack and take on a fucking camping trip with me. I want something that's going to sit on my countertop and produce cannabinoids that I can then take something like the T-check. I don't know if you've heard of the T-check, but the T-check actually lets you test things at home. So I can then take the T-check and I can test what I've made. So then if I have, say, a quart of coconut oil, sorry, these are psilocybin mushrooms because you know where we're going here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, I do.
Vote yes on 109, everybody, please, if you're in Oregon.
I can't wait to see what you do with those when it's time.
Mixing them with lemon juice and psilocybin have a pure draw. So when you make tinctures out of psilocybin mushrooms, realistically, the best thing to do is just put a little lemon juice in here, shake it up, let it sit for a few days, squeeze it out, eat those mushrooms, and then use that lemon juice in your food. Microdose your food. It's really microdosing psilocybin is, for me, somebody that has suffered not PTSD and anything, but well, I have the normal depression that everybody else has, and then COVID just compounds it, you know. And so, yeah, microdosing for me is hugely important. We're plant-based, right? I mean, cannabis, food, everything is plant-based, and we don't want to kill a bunch of animals to eat. Although there is that argument that a deer at 200 to 250 pounds survives on vegetables alone. True story. It's a true story. But when was the last time that a deer was able to break down protein molecules for a brain this size to work, to be able to build something like, let's say, the World Trade Center or the Golden Gate Bridge? Because the last time I saw, deers didn't have no villages and shit. You know, they didn't have any structure or community other than the deers. So brain food needs protein. Wasted protein is wasted protein. We don't want that. When we get back to that hemp and cannabis plant and we talk about pure vegetable protein that's available, we eat about 85% vegetarian and about 40% wild, harvested, so that we know that we're not getting any of these chemicals and anything. And that's something else I want to bring to people's attention, Aubrey. And I know sponsorship was what we were talking about at this time.
No problem, please.
One of my sponsors is Fairwinds Cannabis. And Fairwinds Cannabis grows one strain of cannabis. They are one of the largest here in the I-502, but they have clean room grows, cleanest in the state in the I-502. They test for heavy metals, pesticides, molds, mycotoxins, and residual solvents. But they do it on their own. They're not required to. The state doesn't require any of that. So I need to know, just like you know that you're going to an organic farm to get an organic carrot, or you're going out into the wild to pick a wild foraged mushroom, that there's no government sanctioned list of chemicals that can be in that cannabis and or food item. So that, again, is huge for me about making things at home. When these people can take anything home, and yes, if you have home grow, that should be our next legal issue, other than getting pot prisoners out of prison. The home grow, people can make their own in the magical butter machine, test it in the T-check, and have half a year's worth of medicine for themselves to use, that they know there's going to be slight degradation, but they know what's in it.
Exactly.
And that's hugely important.
No, I admire that, because it's just so interesting what you say about sugar. There was a big study that came out about how it was not very much different than cigarettes were, in a big way, that a Harvard scientist, I believe, and I should check my facts, but I believe there was a Harvard scientist who was actually hired at the time in the 50s or 60s to say it was healthier. Yeah. And it's just, we are very warped about food in this country in general, I would say. What are your, and if you have anything else to say at your sponsors, I of course want to give you the platform to do that. But
no, shout out to everybody that makes things possible for me. I really appreciate it. Everybody, you know who you are. There's not a ton of you, but I thank you for giving me a pulpit and a means to talk and educate people.
Okay. No, and I appreciate that, because I know that when I reached out to you, one of the first things you said was, these are the people that I love and like to work with. And that just goes back to you giving back your knowledge to the community, and the vibe that you give off is so pure in what the 420 community is about. So thank you. But I did want to ask you, in general, the cannabis industry, where do you see it going in this country? What are you most excited about? What are you concerned about from your perspective?
Well, I will, I guess my first statement can be the shit show will continue for many years. Each state will continue to go through its ups and downs. We only have 11 states right now that are fully ready to go. Bringing states on regularly. I think that as the political climate changes, I think the cannabis climate will change as well. But I'm sad to say, and I'm sad to see, and I see it every day, and I see it 23 and a half hours a day, the lecherous, money-hungry people that are only out to make $1 off of what is new, like they did off of organic foods, like they did off of bottled water, like they did off of, I could just go on and on and on. This is the newest money-making opportunity for anybody out there. I get looked at funny because I don't like to say it. My cannabis farmer, my hemp farmers, they don't wear suits. They wear overalls. They're farmers. It's an agricultural crop. And that seems to not resonate with these people that are seeing dollar signs and NASDAQ reviews and all this other bullshit that they can leech money off of a medically legalized. We legalized under the nuances of medicine. So the money aspect of it totally it disappoints me unbelievably. I can't stand the aspect of it. Another aspect that I can't stand is the exploitation of women through cannabis and the exploitation of people that there's a lot of people, we just talk about outlaws, and I don't even need to name anybody because he can knock my ass out in a second, but I don't believe in the exploitation of people that have sexual offenses in anything. So when you put somebody on a pedestal just because they have a cannabis ranch or farm now, who is a convicted sex offender, a convicted rapist, and you want to stand next to him at a cannabis conference and get your picture taken, you're standing next to a convicted rapist. So I have my moral problems with the cannabis industry coming and moving out of outlaw age era to legal era, because we still have a lot of these things mixed up. My moral compass only points me in one direction. You see, I don't follow a ton of people. I don't post smoking on my page anywhere. You've never seen me smoke on my page. But I'm also a type 2 diabetic, and a lot of people don't know that. I can't eat a ton of cannabinoids because 2 milligram candy for me is like eating 4 hits of acid. I'm done for like 16 hours. Cannabinoids have lipids in them and fats, sugars in them. Sugars are forms of fats. So it takes about 8 hours to get through me. So it's a fun ride, let me tell you. But I try not to eat as much cannabis. And I love smoking concentrates because nothing gets you there. Nothing gets you. You can smoke all the flower in the world at 28, 32%. But when you take that plant matter out and you start smoking concentrates, diet, sauce, whatever you want to call it, you're really getting the full benefits of the plant. And that's what takes us back to, remember the tomatoes had the leaves on them for the raw protein, and then they had the decarboxylated cannabinoids in the bacon fat? That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I try to do with my life in cannabis, is tie it all together like that.
Are there any cannabinoids that you're most interested in that you haven't kind of seen out there a lot yet, like CBG or CBN, or is it the whole spectrum that you're interested in?
So isolating one, there's no answer in isolating one. There's no benefits in isolating one. The only benefit that we have seen in isolated CBD, let's take that one in particular, is in epileptic patients. That's the only place we have seen direct scientific results on isolated CBD treatment. And here's the other thing. As soon as you get that 0.03% of THC in it, it does become full spectrum. But it's more on a broad spectrum basis because you've got so much more CBD than THC. THC was what brought us to this forefront to check for the other 400 components and compounds, remember? So for the legalization aspects, they don't want to think about the THC because it gets us high. But without that THC, there is no medicine. Isolating a certain thing. When's the last time they took carotenoids out of carrots and gave you a freaking pill full of carotenoids? I mean, just think about it.
Yeah.
And then here's the other thing. And then sell it to you for $60 a bottle at 7-Eleven. You don't buy medicine at the damn corner store or gas station. That's the fleecing of this industry that is so disappointing to me. It's like I see out there right now, people are buying and getting offered, Aubrey, an $80 jar of 6 ounces of honey. 6 ounces of honey. But then here's the other thing. With this one in particular, I happen to be writing an op-ed for Vice right now about this $80 jar of honey. So you'll see it all over the place because I'm calling people out. I'm sick of people getting ripped off. Right? So this $80 jar of honey doesn't even list that it has an amount of CBD in it. It can't say it's got 1,200 milligrams. It can't say it has 800 milligrams. It just says that the bees ate a man-made nectar and then regurgitated it back. And there are a microscopic level of cannabinoids that are in this honey. $80 a bottle. $80 a bottle. You can give it a test in a lab and it will register the cannabinoids. But first of all, bees don't eat man-made simple syrup because if they do, they're eating non-nutritious, non-nectar from a flower, which means your honey is fake.
Yep.
So $80 a jar for red honey that has no nutrients in it because you fed the bees a sugared simple syrup made out of white sugar or glycerin. And you have this huge, and they stand on a pulpit that is so damn huge. They have a magazine, a shop. The magazine sells for $18 a ticket, $18 a magazine.
It feels like fraud.
It's fraud. The owner of the magazine is a former executive at Food Network. I know her well.
There you go. It's Hollywood.
She's done more stories on me. I've given her 60, 70 recipes. All I ask back when people use my recipes is a PDF of the recipe in your magazine. She wouldn't even do that for me. So when I see people out there that are ripping people off for an $80 6-ounce jar of honey, making money off of it medically because they're claiming that it has health benefits.
Yep.
There's no health benefits to ripping people off. So it gets me a little uptight. I'm sorry my voice got a little angry about it. You know what I mean?
It's passion. It's passion. Where are you going to fit in 5 years down the road in this industry? Where will we see you?
Probably in the same place. My health will probably get a little worse. I'm just joking. We're all getting older. Hopefully I still have a pulpit to stand on and to educate people about realistically the atrocities that are happening in the cannabis space, because I don't know the reaches of certain ones. They don't want to hear what I have to say. They want to hear about what the guy in the suit has to say and all this savior of this product that he is going to give them through the product that he's selling them. Well, I've taken their products out. I don't have a product to sell. The product that I'm selling is right here. And it grows and grows and grows every day, and I don't sell it. I give it away. So anything that I say, if it changes, you can go back and you can call me on my shit right now and you can say, Sebastian, I had 2 recipes from you 4 years ago where you used CBD isolate. Well, at the time, when I was putting those recipes together, CBD isolate was so new that it was $350 for a half gram. It was the newest thing on the planet. But you won't see new recipes with CB and CBG and the rest of the alphabetical cannabinoid soup because I don't fully believe in them isolated in any way. And 5 years, hopefully, we have gotten to a place where they've gotten all the delivery systems out of the way for cannabinoids, from suppositories to smoking to all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And we're on a more, what I want to see is a regulated level, state-regulated level, with craft cannabis ruling the lot, integrated vertical grows that have over 6,000 plants. Get the fuck out of here with that. That's for something else. That's like you want commodity carrots? I'm sorry. We don't want to grow commodity cannabis and then turn it into medicine. Do you know what has to go into growing commodity cannabis to get into medicine in these little capsules and pills that people are doing? So my background is in food and agriculture. That's the way I want to remain. I want people to eat more cannabis in the next 5 years. In the next 10 years, I want them to be able to go to the grocery store and pick up a carton of hemp microgreens, throw it in their salad with their tatsoi, baby romaine, or speckled heirloom lettuce, toss it up with a little bit of cannabis-infused lemonade vinaigrette, crumble some goat cheese on it, a few strawberries, and get down. And just consider it lunch. Not, I'm eating a bunch of weed, guys. You know? Hopefully in 5 years, that's where we'll be.
I cannot wait to see how you do this. Hold on, plug it in. Oh, these are one of the things of the modern age. It popped out. We have to we don't need to do the vertical grow, but we're still going to charge. What inspires you? I mean, I think you've kind of touched on it, but what is your like wake up every day? This is why I keep working in this industry and cultivating my passion and giving my passion to others. What is it?
If one person questions any of the things that I just put on the table, craft cannabis, what's in their cannabis, what is the CBD, why is CBD oil put in avocado oil? If they question any of that and go find an answer and decide that the product that they may have in their hand is not the best, it's not giving money to a person that's doing the best for overall for everybody. Mm-hmm. One person, as long as I touch one person with that, I consider my job done. I have had a good career in food, and for this agricultural crop to now come available to me without having to look over my shoulder, worry about being put in prison again because of it, I love it, because I went from a really shitty situation of being caught with cannabis to being punished for cannabis to working for some of the biggest political powerhouses, President Bush, to and I'm not a bushbagger because I have no politics in me. He has a house in Kennebunkport, Maine, and needed a caterer. Hey, that's me.
That's the best thing about New Hampshire too. You're used to being around all of them, so you just go and you're like, this is a person. This is who you are.
Yeah.
I met Leonard Nimoy too. Actually, I wanted to call that out because he's from Boston area, and I met him at a convention in Seabrook, New Hampshire, for Star Trek fans. He's such a nice guy. He was a nice guy.
Humble individual. And for me, that was huge because like you didn't have to be a Star Trek fan. You had to be a TV fan. And in that era, when you grew up, you turned on what was on, So that was huge for me.
And advice to people trying to get into the industry.
So there's a lot of, I'm going to say this as bluntness, as with blunt as I can be. Just because you're an end user doesn't make you part of a fucking industry. Plain and simple. Mm-hmm. End users, if you don't draw a paycheck from somebody that is doing something in this industry, i.e. a cannabis farm, i.e. a publication, I write for magazines. I draw a paycheck. I sell my recipes. I'm also a retired chef. So I'm doing it the educational. That's why I have the time now. I don't have a restaurant to run or anything like that. So if you draw a paycheck, you're in the industry. If you're interviewing me, you're in the industry. But if you're buying weed at a dispensary, a pot shop, going home and smoking it and blowing big duck lip hits out into the screen on Instagram, you're not part of the industry. You're not. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to be blunt about it. You're not. If you're taking your clothes off and standing in a weed field, you're not part of the industry. So for me, it's really simple. If you draw a check from people that have a legal cannabis business, me here in the I-502, I got people like Fairwinds Cannabis, Legal. They did $44 million in sales last year. Scored Cannabis. These guys scored marijuana. You got to score. If you don't score, you haven't really tried craft cannabis, because these people do less than 20-pound drops at a time. It's unbelievable. They sell out within an hour. The genetics are huge, so it gets down to the nitty-gritty of the entire cannabis situation that I want. And that's all I can really say. It's like I want people to have their eyes open and not go into this with blinders on. If you're going to invest $100,000, you're not going to go out with blinders and get done by some Ponzi scheme guy, hopefully. So if you're buying a cannabis product, hopefully you're not just going, this one's good, I'll take it. Or what's got the highest THC percent? Or hopefully you're a little bit beyond that, you know, and that's what I hope.
I love that. Anything else you want to tell us? You have so much knowledge and passion. We could talk to you like for years, but anything else? And where can we follow you?
You can find me on Instagram at Chef_Sebastian _Carosi. On that screen right down there, you can see all the information. Hashtags are the short order cannabis revolutionary, weed is what's for dinner, things like that. I try to keep that like I don't post every day. I'm not like interactive like that, but I just like to keep things alive in people's minds that we can eat this plant instead of only smoking it.
Well, Chef, thank you so much for sharing everything with us. I'm sure we'll have you back again. Cannot thank you enough for your just pure love of teaching and letting people know what they're consuming. It's important, and it's so wonderful to see someone dedicated to a craft in this world of crazy fast, keeping a lot, take in as much information as you can and retain nothing. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Aubrey. Seriously, and even if we don't see each other from here and we don't talk to each other for a couple of weeks or anything, please stay in touch. It was you that brought me to the Bluntness.
Yeah.
You and the way that you are able to interview people in the natural state is huge to me, because I go on a lot of these shows and I don't particularly care for a ton of them. And I was hugely excited to be on this one with you. I just want to let you know.
Yeah, thank you. Stay on the line after we end the broadcast so we can say a proper goodbye. But thank you, Chef. Keep doing the good stuff, and shout out to the lady behind the magic. I won't say her name to protect her privacy.
I'll say her name. Getting all this set up for me. Have a good day, Aubrey. Thank you.
Bye.